I was 6 years old, the night my father counted 3 silver coins into a stranger's palm and walked away without looking back. I remember the cold, the way my bare feet stuck to the frozen mud. The trader's cart smelled like rust and fear. Other children had been there before me, their terror soaked into the wooden slats. My mother didn't come to say goodbye. My father's hands shook when he took the money, but not from cold, from relief. They were finally free of me. I didn't cry. Even at 6, I understood. I was the thing they couldn't afford to keep. The trader had yellow teeth and hands that gripped too tight. He threw me into the cart with 2 other children, a boy who wouldn't stop shaking, and a girl who'd gone completely silent. We rattled through the forest for 3 days. The trader fed us stale bread and told us we'd fetch a good price in the southern markets. The boy asked what they'd make us do. The trader just laughed. On the 4th night, the wolves came. I heard them first, low growls that made the horses scream. Then the trader was shouting, grabbing his crossbow, and the cart tipped sideways as the horses bolted. I hit the ground hard, my shoulder cracking against a rock. The other children scattered into the darkness. I should have run too, but I couldn't move. A massive grey wolf stood 3 feet from my face, its eyes glowing amber in the moonlight. Blood dripped from its jaws. Behind it, I could see the trader's body, throat torn open. The wolf should have killed me next. That's what wolves do to prey that can't run. Instead, it lowered its head and sniffed my hair. Then it turned and walked away, glancing back once as if to say, "Follow," so I did. Hey, family, quick question for you. You're here, you're watching, and that means a lot to me. But here's what's been on my mind. This channel isn't about me. It's about you. It's about giving you stories that move you, that make you feel something, that are worth the minutes you're spending here. And if I'm missing the mark somewhere, if the voice isn't sitting right with you, if the pictures aren't connecting, if the storylines aren't grabbing you the way they should, if the hooks aren't pulling you in, I need to know, because your experience matters more to me than anything else. You're someone who chose to be here, and I want to honor that by giving you the absolute best I can. So please, I'm asking you to open up with me. Be honest. Be direct. Tell me what's not working. Tell me what would make you want to subscribe. Tell me what I'm missing. I'm here to serve you better, and I can only do that if you let me in on what you're really thinking. So drop a comment, even if it's hard to say. I'm listening. I'm ready. And I'll be so grateful to see your comments. That was 15 years ago in the forests outside Valdecanas, a small territory where packs ruled through fear and bloodlines meant everything. My name is Kira Salazar, though I didn't remember it for years after the wolves took me. For a long time, I had no name at all, just sounds the pack made when they wanted my attention. I'm telling you this story now because I need you to understand something. The people who should have protected me sold me for less than the cost of a winter coat, and the monsters everyone feared. They saved my life. Hello, guys. Welcome to my channel. Before we go deeper into this, I need to know, where are you watching from right now? Drop your location in the comments because it matters so much to me to know this story is reaching people everywhere. And if this is hitting you the way it's hitting me to tell it, please hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Your perspectives in the comments. They mean everything. They remind me why I keep doing this. Now let me take you back to that forest. The wolves didn't eat me that first night. They didn't hurt me at all. The grey one, I'd later learn his name was Cazador, led me to a den carved into the hillside. Inside, a white wolf with scars across her muzzle watched me with eyes that felt almost human. She made a low rumbling sound, and Cazador laid down, resting his massive head on his paws. I curled up in the corner and waited to die. When I woke, there was meat beside me. Fresh deer, still warm. My stomach screamed with hunger, but I didn't know if I was allowed to eat it. The white wolf nudged it toward me with her nose. When I still hesitated, she made that rumbling sound again, softer this time, almost gentle. I ate. For weeks I didn't speak. Human words felt wrong in my mouth, like I'd forgotten how my tongue was supposed to work. The wolves didn't seem to mind. They brought me food. They kept me warm when winter came. The white wolf, her name was Lunar, I'd learn much later, would sleep pressed against my back so I wouldn't freeze. But here's what I didn't understand then. What I couldn't possibly know as a terrified 6-year-old child. These wolves weren't just being kind. They were waiting for something, watching me, testing me. And when I started to understand their language, the growls that meant danger, the soft chuffs that meant safety, the howls that carried messages across miles, that's when Luna finally looked at me differently, like I'd passed some kind of test I didn't know I was taking. By the time I was 10, I could run with the pack for hours without stopping. I knew which berries would kill you and which would save you. I knew how to read the forest, when storms were coming, when rival packs were near, when humans were hunting too close to our territory, and I knew their language better than I knew myself. That's when the dreams started. Dreams of a woman with my eyes standing in a great hall, wolves bowing at her feet, dreams of fire and screaming and a throne made of bones. I'd wake up gasping and Luna would be watching me with those two human eyes, like she'd been waiting for me to remember something. But remember what? I was nobody. A child sold for pocket change. At least, that's what I believed. Until the hunters came and dragged me back to the world that had thrown me away. Until they locked me in chains and brought me before the Alpha Council. Until an old wolf looked at my shoulder and saw the birthmark I'd been born with, a crescent moon wrapped in thorns, and everything I thought I knew about my life shattered like glass. Because I wasn't just some unwanted child my pack had sold to save money. I was the one thing they'd been terrified to keep. The wolves taught me to survive, but survival wasn't the same as living. For the first year, everything was about staying alive, learning which mushrooms would stop your stomach from cramping and which would make you see things that weren't there. Understanding that when the birds went silent, you needed to hide. Knowing the difference between a warning growl and a playful one, because getting that wrong could cost you your life. Luna was patient with me in ways my own mother never had been. When I couldn't keep up during hunts, she'd slow down and wait. When I made mistakes, like the time I tried to drink from a stream where a bear was fishing, she'd position herself between me and danger without hesitation. The pack accepted me because she did. But they never let me forget I was different. I was the only one who couldn't shift. The only one who needed fire to stay warm. The only one whose teeth couldn't tear through hide and bone. By the time I turned 12, I'd stopped thinking in Spanish. The wolf language had taken over, a combination of sounds, body movements, and something deeper I couldn't quite name. It was like feeling the pack's emotions in my chest before they even made a sound. When Cazador was angry, I knew it before his hackles raised. When the younger wolves were playing too rough, I could sense the shift from fun to real aggression. Luna noticed. She started teaching me things the others didn't know, how to push my feelings outward instead of just receiving theirs, how to make a wolf stop mid-step with nothing but a thought, how to call them from miles away without making a sound. I didn't understand why she was teaching me this. I was just a human child they'd saved. But every time I asked, she'd give me that look, the one that said I already knew the answer. I just hadn't remembered it yet. The years blurred together. 13, 15, 18. I grew tall and lean, my body covered in scars from learning the hard way. There was the jagged line across my ribs from when I'd gotten between two males fighting over territory. The puncture marks on my shoulder from the time a younger wolf thought I was prey, and Luna had to remind him otherwise. My hands were calloused from climbing, my feet tough enough to run barefoot over sharp rocks. I looked more wolf than human by then, moved like them, thought like them. The few times we came across humans, loggers or traders passing through, I'd hide and watch them like they were the strange ones, their loud voices, their clumsy movements. The way they couldn't sense danger until it was right on top of them. I didn't miss being one of them. But the council had been watching, waiting. The hunters came on a morning when the mist was so thick you couldn't see 10 feet ahead. They'd been tracking us for days. I should have sensed them sooner, but I'd gotten comfortable, careless. They used nets made of silver-threaded rope that burned when they touched skin. The pack scattered when the first trap snapped shut, and I was alone when 3 men surrounded me. I tried to call the wolves back, tried to push that feeling outward the way Luna had taught me. But the silver was in my blood somehow, making everything fuzzy and far away. One of the hunters, a man with a thick Andalusian accent and cruel eyes, looked at me like I was something fascinating and disgusting at the same time. "Look at this one," he said to the others. "Raised by animals, probably doesn't even remember how to speak." I could have told him I spoke just fine. That I knew 3 languages, actually: Spanish, the wolf tongue, and the language of the forest itself. But I didn't. I snarled at him instead, and he hit me hard enough that I tasted blood. They dragged me back to Almodovar, a city I barely remembered, though I'd been born near there. Everything was too loud, too many smells, too many people pressing in close with their staring eyes and pointing fingers. They threw me in a cell beneath the council hall, and for 3 days no one came except to shove food through the bars. I didn't eat it. Couldn't. It smelled wrong, cooked and dead, and empty of the life that should have been in it. On the 4th day, they brought me upstairs in chains. The council chamber was exactly like the one from my dreams. High stone walls, torches burning in iron brackets, and at the center, 5 alphas sitting in chairs that might as well have been thrones. They looked at me the way my father had looked at those 3 silver coins, like I was a problem they needed to solve. The head alpha, a man named Rodrigo Venn, with silver in his beard and murder in his eyes, leaned forward. "Do you know what you are?" he asked. I didn't answer. Couldn't have if I wanted to. My throat had forgotten how to shape human words. "You're an abomination," he continued. "Half feral. Dangerous. The wolves have corrupted you, taught you things no human should know. We've seen what you can do, how you call them, control them. That power doesn't belong in human hands." Behind him, an old wolf stood in the shadows. I hadn't noticed him at first, but now I couldn't look away. His eyes were the same amber as Cazador's, the same as Luna's. And when he looked at my bare shoulder, at the birthmark I'd had since birth, the crescent moon wrapped in thorns, his entire body went rigid. "Rodrigo," the old wolf said quietly. "Look at her mark." And that's when everything I thought I knew about myself shattered into pieces, too small to ever put back together. The room went silent in a way that made my skin crawl. Rodrigo stood slowly, his chair scraping against stone. He moved toward me like I was a snake that might strike, eyes locked on the birthmark that had always been there, a crescent moon wrapped in thorns, dark against my pale shoulder. I'd never thought anything of it, just a mark, nothing special. But the way every alpha in that room was staring at it now told me I'd been wrong my entire life. "That's not possible," Rodrigo whispered. His voice shook, not with fear exactly, something worse, something that tasted like old hatred and fresh panic mixed together. "The Morgana line is dead. We made sure of it." The old wolf stepped into the light. His name was Esteban, I'd learn later. Rodrigo's own father, though you'd never know it from the way Rodrigo looked at him now, like he'd just been betrayed. Esteban's eyes hadn't left my shoulder. "You made sure of most of it," Esteban said quietly. "But not all." My mind was racing, trying to piece together words I barely remembered how to use. Morgana. That name lived in my dreams, the woman with my eyes, standing in the great hall with wolves at her feet. I'd always thought they were just nightmares my mind had invented to make sense of the violence I'd seen. But they weren't inventions at all. They were memories that didn't belong to me, memories that had been passed down through blood. "Explain it to her," Esteban said, still watching me. "She deserves to know why her own pack sold her like garbage." Rodrigo's jaw clenched so hard I could hear his teeth grinding. But he spoke, and with every word, the ground beneath me felt less and less solid. 23 years ago, there had been a queen, Luna Morgana de Castellon. She ruled the territory with absolute power, not because she was the strongest alpha, but because she could do something no one else could. She could reach into a wolf's mind and control it completely, make them bow, make them fight, make them die for her if she wanted. The lunar bloodline had carried this gift for generations, passed from mother to daughter, and it made them untouchable. Until the alphas decided they'd had enough of being ruled by someone who could turn their own wolves against them. They called it the Red Moon Coup. Happened on a night when Luna Morgana was supposed to be celebrating the birth of her granddaughter. Instead, the alphas came with silver and fire and slaughtered everyone in the royal house. Morgana herself fought back. Legend said she'd commanded an entire army of wolves to defend the palace, that the battle lasted until dawn and the rivers ran red. But silver kills even the most powerful wolves eventually. And when Morgana fell, the alphas made sure to hunt down every last member of her bloodline. Every daughter, every granddaughter, every woman who might carry that cursed gift. They thought they'd gotten them all. "Your mother was Morgana's youngest daughter," Rodrigo said, and his voice was flat now, empty of emotion. "She'd been hidden away in a minor pack up north, Valdecanas, married off to a nobody alpha, living quiet, pretending she didn't have the gift. For years, no one knew. And then she had you. My mother, the woman who wouldn't even say goodbye the night they sold me, the woman who'd looked at me my whole childhood like I was something rotten she couldn't wash off her hands. She'd known. The entire time she'd known what I was." "The mark shows up at birth," Esteban added softly. "Every lunar heir has it. Your mother saw it the moment you were born and knew exactly what it meant. She could hide her own gift, never use it, never let anyone suspect. But you? A child with that mark. It was only a matter of time before someone noticed, before the council sent hunters to finish what they'd started 20 years ago." The chains around my wrists suddenly felt heavier. All those years I'd thought my parents sold me because they were desperate, because they couldn't afford another mouth to feed, because I was unwanted. But that wasn't it at all. They sold me to save themselves. If the council discovered they'd been harboring a Morgana heir, they wouldn't have just killed me. They would have burned that entire pack to ash. Every man, woman, and child. My father took those 3 silver coins and told himself he was protecting his people, that sacrificing one cursed child was worth saving hundreds. And my mother? She'd probably felt nothing but relief watching me disappear into that trader's cart. "So what now?" I asked. My voice came out rough and broken, the first human words I'd spoken in years. "You going to finish the job? Kill the last one?" Rodrigo looked at me like he wanted to. Every muscle in his body was tense, ready. But Esteban stepped between us, and something in that movement made Rodrigo hesitate. "That depends," Esteban said, turning to face me fully now, "on whether you understand what those wolves really did when they saved you." My stomach dropped, because the way he said it, that tone, that weight, meant I'd been wrong about something fundamental. The wolves hadn't just saved me out of kindness or instinct or random mercy. They'd saved me on purpose. "The wolves that took you weren't wild," Esteban continued. His voice was steady, but his eyes were wet. "They were Luna Morgana's personal guard. When the coup happened, when they realized the queen was dying, she gave them one final command: shift into wolf form permanently and wait. Wait for an heir to appear. Wait as long as it took." The room tilted. I reached for the wall to steady myself, but the chains pulled me short. "They've been living in those woods for 20 years, Esteban said. Watching. Waiting. And when that trader's cart came through with a 6-year-old girl who had the mark on her shoulder, they didn't attack randomly, child. They came for you specifically. They've been training you since the moment you could walk, teaching you the gift, preparing you. Lunar, Cazador, the entire pack that had raised me. They weren't my saviors. They were my grandmother's army, and I was the weapon they'd been sharpening for 15 years. Preparing me for what? I whispered. Rodrigo and Esteban exchanged a look, and in that silence, I understood. They'd been preparing me to take back the throne they believed was mine, to command an army of wolves no alpha could control, to finish what my grandmother had started. And every person in this room knew that if I walked out of here alive, the Red Moon coup would look like mercy compared to what I could do. The chains felt different now that I understood what they were really holding back. Rodrigo ordered me taken back to the cell, but this time 4 guards came instead of 2. They kept their distance, hands on silver-coated blades, eyes never leaving me, like I might explode at any moment. Maybe I could have. I didn't know the limits of what I was capable of. The wolves had taught me control, but they'd never taught me destruction. Not yet, anyway. That night, lying on the cold stone floor, I finally let myself remember everything I'd been trained not to question. Every strange lesson Luna had given me. Every time Cazador had pushed me harder than seemed necessary. The way the pack had treated me, not like a rescued child, but like something precious and dangerous they were holding in trust. They'd known what I was from the beginning, known it the second they saw that mark, and they'd spent 15 years turning me into exactly what the council feared most. I must have fallen asleep eventually because I woke to the sound of the cell door opening. Not the guards this time. Esteban stood in the doorway alone, a finger pressed to his lips. Behind him, the 2 guards who should have been watching lay slumped against the wall, breathing, but unconscious. "We don't have much time," he whispered, moving quickly to unlock my chains. "There's someone you need to meet." I should have been suspicious, should have thought it was a trap. But something in his eyes, That same look Luna used to give me when she was about to teach me something important made me follow him through the dark corridors of the council hall and out into the night. We moved through Almodovar's empty streets until we reached the forest edge, and there, waiting in the shadows where the moonlight couldn't quite reach, was Luna herself. I almost cried seeing her, would have if I'd remembered how. She looked older than I remembered, more grey in her muzzle, more stiffness in the way she moved, but her eyes were the same, ancient and knowing and full of a grief I was only just beginning to understand. "You told them," I said to Esteban, not angry, just stating fact. "I've been protecting the lunar line since before you were born," he answered. "Your grandmother saved my life once, when I was young and stupid and picked a fight I couldn't win. I swore an oath to her bloodline that night. The council may be my son's world, but some promises run deeper than politics." Luna made a low sound, part growl, part something else. And then she did something I'd never seen her do in 15 years. She began to shift. It happened slowly, painfully. Bones cracking and reforming, fur receding into skin. The sound of it made my teeth ache. When it was finished, a woman knelt where the wolf had been, old and scarred and naked in the cold air, but human, completely human. "Kira," she said, and her voice was rough from disuse but still carried command. "It's time you learned the whole truth. Family, I know this is heavy. I know what it feels like when the people who were supposed to protect you are really just protecting themselves. If this story is hitting somewhere deep, please subscribe. Because what comes next, what Luna is about to reveal, changes everything we thought we understood, and about loyalty and betrayal. I promise you, the next part is worth staying for. Her name wasn't Luna. That was just what I'd called her because I didn't know any better. Her real name was Isidora Morgana de Castellon, Luna Morgana's daughter, my grandmother's firstborn. And she hadn't been living as a wolf in those woods by accident. "When the coup happened," Isidora said, pulling a cloak Esteban offered around her shoulders, "my mother knew she was dying, knew they'd gotten too close, moved too fast, brought too much silver. She could have run. Could have commanded every wolf in the territory to carry her to safety, but she didn't." Isidora's hands were shaking. From cold or emotion, I couldn't tell. She gathered her personal guard, the 12 most loyal wolves she'd ever commanded, and she gave them a choice. She could release them from service, let them live free. Or they could take one final order, shift to wolf form permanently and wait, however long it took. Wait for an heir to emerge and train that heir to reclaim what was stolen. "All 12 chose to stay," I whispered. "All 12, Isidora confirmed. "I was one of them. Your mother was pregnant with you then. We didn't know if you'd be a boy or girl, didn't know if you'd carry the gift. But my mother believed. She always believed the bloodline would continue. The pack I'd lived with. Cazador. The grey wolf who'd led me away from that burning caravan. The others who'd taught me to hunt, to survive, to command. They were all royalty, all members of my grandmother's inner circle who'd given up their human forms to wait for me. We tracked your mother for years," Isidora continued. "Watched her hide in Valdecanas, saw her marry that weak alpha, saw her try to bury what she was. When you were born and we saw the mark, we knew, but we also knew she'd never let you live. The council had spies everywhere. It was only a matter of time before someone noticed. So we waited. Waited for her to make the choice we knew she would." "You let them sell me," I said. And it wasn't quite an accusation. more like finally understanding a lesson I'd been too young to grasp. We made sure you ended up on a specific trader's route at a specific time, Esteban said quietly. The sale was always going to happen. Your mother was too terrified to keep you. We just guided where you ended up, made sure the caravan passed through our territory. They'd orchestrated everything, the sale, the attack, my rescue. 15 years of training disguised as survival. I'd never been lost at all. I'd been exactly where they needed me to be. The question now, Isadora said, her eyes meeting mine with an intensity that reminded me exactly whose daughter she was, is what you're going to do with what we've given you. The council knows what you are. They'll hunt you. They'll use silver and fire and every weapon they have to make sure you don't become what your grandmother was. And if I do become that, I asked. If I walk back in there with every wolf in this territory at my back and make them pay for what they did? Isadora smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Then we finally finish what they started 20 years ago. But this time we win. Behind her, shapes moved in the darkness. Dozens of them, hundreds maybe, wolves emerging from the forest with eyes that glowed amber in the moonlight. Not just the 12 royal guard. Not just the pack I'd known. Every wolf within 100 miles had come, and I could feel them in my chest. Their loyalty, their rage, their readiness. One thought from me, and they would tear Almodovar apart, stone by stone. The power was intoxicating, terrifying. Everything the council had feared made real. But there was something Isadora hadn't said. Something I could see in the tightness around her eyes. The way Esteban wouldn't quite look at me. What happens if I don't? I asked quietly. If I choose mercy instead of vengeance? The silence that followed was answer enough. If I chose mercy, I'd be betraying the 12 wolves who'd waited 20 years in forms that weren't theirs. I'd be spitting on my grandmother's sacrifice. I'd be letting my mother and father and every coward who'd helped hunt my family live free while I walked away with nothing. But if I chose vengeance, I'd become exactly what they'd always said I was. A monster. A tyrant. Someone who commanded through fear instead of earning loyalty. The weight of both choices sat on my chest like stones. And standing there in the forest between the woman who'd raised me and the army waiting for my command, I realized something the council had never understood. The gift to control wolves was nothing compared to the burden of choosing what to do with that control. I walked back into that council chamber at dawn, with Isadora on my right and Esteban on my left, and behind us came a river of wolves that filled the streets of Almodovar like a flood. The guards didn't try to stop us. Couldn't, really. What were 20 men with silver blades against 300 wolves who'd been waiting 2 decades for this exact moment? They pressed themselves against the walls and let us pass, their faces pale and eyes wide. Rodrigo was already in the chamber when we arrived, along with the other 4 alphas. They'd known we were coming, probably felt the shift in the air when that many wolves moved with single purpose. To their credit, they didn't run. They stood behind their chairs like captains on a sinking ship, trying to maintain dignity in the face of something they couldn't control. "So this is it then," Rodrigo said, looking at the wolves that packed every inch of the hall behind me. "The Morgana line returns with an army, just like your grandmother." "Not quite like her," I said. My voice was steadier now, more comfortable with human words after a night of speaking them. "She wanted to rule. I just want the truth told." I stepped forward, close enough that Rodrigo could see every scar on my face, every mark the wilderness had left on me. Close enough that he couldn't look away. "My mother knew what I was the day I was born," I said. She saw this mark and understood exactly what it meant. And instead of protecting her own daughter, instead of fighting for me the way any mother should, she counted 3 silver coins and called it mercy. One of the other alphas, a woman named Valeria from the southern packs, shifted uncomfortably. She was trying to save her pack. If the council had discovered, I know what would have happened, I cut her off. Esteban told me everything. The Red Moon coup, the hunting of my family, the fear that drove all of it. And I understand that fear. I do. Because standing here now, feeling 300 wolves waiting for one word from me, I understand exactly why you were terrified of my grandmother. The wolves behind me stirred, a low rumble of anticipation moving through them like thunder before a storm. I could feel their eagerness, their hunger for justice that had been denied for 20 years. One thought, one single command, and this room would run red. But I'd spent the entire night thinking about what Isadora had said, about choices and power and what kind of person I wanted to be. My grandmother ruled through control, I continued. She had this gift, and she used it to make wolves bow whether they wanted to or not. And yes, she kept order. Yes, she was strong. But she also made you so afraid that you convinced yourselves genocide was justified, that hunting down children was necessary, that selling a 6-year-old girl to slavers was the merciful option. I turned slowly, looking at each alpha in turn. You want to know what I'm going to do with this power? If I'm going to command these wolves to tear you apart? If I'm going to take the throne by force and become the tyrant you always feared? The room held its breath. I could, I said simply. Would be easy, actually. They'd do it gladly. Every wolf in this room has a reason to hate the council. Every one of them has lost someone to your fear. And part of me, the part that remembers being 6 years old and watching my father count silver coins, wants to let them have their revenge. Isadora made a small sound behind me. Not quite a warning, but close. But here's what you never understood about the lunar gift, I said. It's not just about controlling wolves. It's about feeling them. Every emotion, every memory, every moment of pain and joy and grief they carry. And you know what I feel right now, standing here with 300 wolves at my back? I closed my eyes and let myself sink into that feeling, the collective consciousness of every wolf waiting for my command. Their rage was there, yes. Their desire for vengeance. But underneath that, deeper and stronger, was something else entirely. Exhaustion, I whispered. They're tired, tired of hiding, tired of fighting, tired of waiting for a war that should have ended 20 years ago. They came here tonight because I called them, because they're loyal. But if I asked them what they really wanted, it wouldn't be blood, it would be peace. I opened my eyes and looked directly at Rodrigo. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to stand before every pack in this territory and tell them the truth, all of it. What you did to the Morgana line, why you did it, what it cost. And then you're going to make a choice. What choice? Rodrigo's voice was barely above a whisper. You can keep ruling through fear, I said. Keep looking over your shoulder, wondering if I'm going to change my mind. Keep preparing for a war with an enemy you can't defeat. Or you can learn what my grandmother never did, that real power doesn't come from making people bow. It comes from earning their trust. Valeria stepped forward cautiously. And if we choose trust, what does that look like? It looks like the lunar line having a seat on this council, Esteban said, speaking up for the first time. Not as rulers, as equals. It looks like wolves having a voice in the laws that govern them, It looks like ending the hunts, the purges, the paranoia that's ruled this territory for 2 decades. And if we refuse? Rodrigo asked. I smiled, and it wasn't kind. Then I'll show you exactly what 300 loyal wolves can do when someone they love is threatened. But I don't think you'll refuse. Because you're not stupid. You know you can't win this fight. The only question is whether you're wise enough to end it peacefully. The silence stretched long enough that I could hear my own heartbeat. Behind me, the wolves waited with inhuman patience. Finally, Rodrigo looked at his father, at Esteban, who'd been protecting my bloodline in secret for 23 years, and something in his expression cracked. We were wrong, he said quietly. About your grandmother. About your mother. About you. We let fear make us into the monsters we were trying to prevent. He turned to the other alphas. One by one, they nodded. The lunar line will have its seat, Rodrigo continued. The laws will change, and the truth will be told. He looked back at me, and for the first time, I saw something other than fear in his eyes. But I have to ask, after everything we did to your family, everything we took from you, how can you possibly choose mercy? I thought about my mother counting those coins, about my father walking away, about Isadora spending 20 years as a wolf, waiting for me to exist, about all the wolves behind me who'd sacrificed their human lives for a promise made by a dying queen. Because someone has to break the cycle, I said simply, and it might as well be me. The next morning, Rodrigo stood before the assembled packs and told them everything. Some people cried, some shouted, some called for his removal from the council. But the truth was out, and there was no putting it back. Isadora shifted back to human form permanently that day, said she'd been a wolf long enough. Cazador and the others followed. One by one, old men and women with scars and stories, finally able to rest after 2 decades of waiting. My mother came to see me once, a few weeks later. She stood outside the council hall where I now had a seat and a voice, and she couldn't quite meet my eyes. I'm sorry, she said. It was the first time I'd heard her voice since I was 6. I know, I told her. And I did. I could feel her regret, her shame, her desperate hope that maybe I'd understand. But sorry doesn't give me back the childhood you sold. Doesn't undo the choice you made to save yourself instead of protecting me. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I don't expect forgiveness. Good, I said gently, because I don't have it to give. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I won't punish you either. You'll live with what you did. Same as I'll live with what was done to me. That's mercy. It's the best I can offer. She left without another word, and I never saw her again. I'm telling you this story now because I need you to understand something. Being sold for 3 silver coins didn't define me. Being raised by wolves didn't make me a monster. And having the power to destroy my enemies didn't mean I had to use it. The real power, the kind that lasts, came from choosing who I wanted to be when everything inside me screamed for revenge. This channel exists because of stories like this, because of people who've been underestimated, abandoned, sold for nothing, and had to claw their way back to something that looked like dignity. If this story moved you, if it made you think about your own moments of choosing between vengeance and healing, please subscribe. Hit that like button. Drop a comment telling me about a time you chose the harder path because it was the right one. You're here because you understand that strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's mercy when you have every right to rage. Thank you for listening. Thank you for staying. Thank you for being part of this community that values truth over comfort and growth over revenge. I'll see you in the next story. Until then, remember, your worth was never determined by the people who failed to see it.